Hello. Hello, hello. Okay, cool. So, if you've just come from the other video where we've scraped some Reddit data from the Ghana subreddit and similar topics, this talk we're just going to go through that data. I'm going to show you some interesting things we can do with it. I've linked in the chat in YouTube already the GitHub where you can find all of this data, where you can find all of these notebooks where you can explore stuff, and I've put a link in there that says Binder as well. If you click that, it'll probably take like a minute to load or something, but it will let you run these lines of code alongside me, and you don't need to install anything. So if you want to code along, that's how you can do it. So yeah, zoom in. All right, so we're covering that exploration. I've shown in this GitHub, we've got all that data. So we've got the single Reddit post, we've got the multi-Reddit post, and we've got the whole Ghana subreddit, the top 25. We're just going to use the multi-post one just because that's only got 700 comments. It's a little bit smaller and easier to explore, but there's no reason you couldn't do it with the larger data set as well if you wanted to. So first thing we're going to do is install our two packages, pandas and numpy. These are just the really standard data analytics packages for Python. They let us read in data from CSVs or Excel spreadsheets and just put them in very nicely rendered tables and get a bunch of sort of helper functions around that. You shouldn't need to install these, but if you see any problems with matplotlib or seaborn, you might need to come back up and run the cell. So this one, we're installing matplotlib and seaborn. This just gives us nicer graphs, basically. And then I'm setting a bunch of parameters that set the colors and the sizes of those graphs. So first thing here, we're going to use pandas, PD, to read in that multi-post of Reddit comments into a data frame object called data. And then we're running data.head, which will print the first 5 rows of that table. So we can see exactly what we saw in that other video. We've got the URL, we've got the post ID, post title, the author of a comment, whatever upvote or downvote score they have, the time it was created, and the body or the text from each comment. We can double check that actually exists as well if we just go back to Reddit. If you did want to see it live, you can just put that post ID at the end and it'll take you to that exact post. So this is where all that data's from. Just to see the full text, because this pandas data frame, it'll crop those long texts, but we can just see some of those comments. Does this look like it's about Ghana? Just sort of sanity check what we're looking at here. I can see explicit mentions of Ghana and common attractions for people to go see if they're in Ghana, so that makes sense. With most data sets, I just recommend running this info function. Gives a really high level overview. So we've got 797 rows, so we've probably got 797 comments. I can see we've got some null objects in the author column. That seems a bit weird. There's like 100 messages that seem to not have an author associated with them, but those might be deleted comments or downvoted comments that were removed or something like that. Then you can run data.describe as well. I've just added this to tidy it up because the numbers are a bit crazy. But this will give like mathematical information. So the only mathematical field we have at the moment is score. So we can see we've got 797 instances of score. It's never null. The average upvote number is 12. The minimum is -37. But most comments seem to have, 1 to 6. The sort of average comment has 1 to 6 upvotes. But someone somewhere has 1,007, for example. We can just get the number of comments as well, as we saw before. We've got 500 in this one post, 230 in another, and about 50 in the other one. We can also see who the most popular authors are using that same value counts function. So this guy, BaseLB, is the most common commenter on the subreddit. We could go check them out. No, I worry I may regret that. How do we find it? If we go to any commenter, click on their username, you just have to replace that username here. So oldreddit.com/user. So, I don't know, This person might have nothing to do with Ghana, but I'm just sharing it so you can have a look. It might be that you find there's one very interesting commenter who is in all of the conversations. We can look at those top comments. So there's that number one comment. Ghana is considered a success story. It seems quite positive. Definitely people are resonating with it because 1,000 people have upvoted it, and that's quite huge. We see a lot of other comments. We see one here that's just an interesting comment on cocoa production or chocolate production. People saying it's stable. We're seeing a lot of good positive things in the upper end of these comments. And then on the lower end, majority of them are deleted. This is really common in Reddit. When people are disagreed with, they get upset because they have a score associated with their account. And if that's low or negative, it can be considered embarrassing. We've got some people explicitly saying it's unsafe, and just this one doesn't really have enough context, but someone says they're uncomfortable. So initial thoughts, I mean, I've seen loads of positive stuff in here, mentions of chocolate, good tourism. I'm seeing, success story and stable. So it looks like among the positive sentiment, there's some interesting things to pull out. Let's have a look at the most common messages as well, just to see if we're weighting our messages with anything. So the obvious standout there is we've got this deleted and removed one. We don't want to see those in any word cloud we generate or any graphs because they just don't represent anything. So a really easy thing to do would be just to remove them. And in fact, a good thing to do is just deduplicate the data. So in a free text field, there shouldn't really be any reason that multiple people are saying the exact same comment, unless there's some sort of protest going on or something like that, which it doesn't look like there is. So first thing I do is just deduplicate that. So now instead of having 7 of those, we should have 1 of each. So we only have 1 of each comment now. We also have the auto moderator. So there's only 1 comment by auto moderator in these 3 posts. But again, if we had like 25 posts, if we were scraping a whole subreddit, we would probably see 25 instances of this message. Thanks for your submission. Every one of these words would become your most popular word. They'd be your most popular commenter. So you should always just drop them, or any iteration of them. But the only way you can find them is by looking at these value counts and just exploring that data set. Cool, so we've tidied up now. So let's go a little bit deeper. The first thing I like to try and do is just find most commonly used words. I think that's a good way to sort of gauge public perception. And from there, we might drill down, we might find something that seems really obvious, and we could branch out into, what do people think about food in Ghana? Or what do tourists think of Ghana as a destination, or what are the top tourist attractions? There's sort of all sorts of places to go with that. So we have to import something called NLTK. If that's not already installed, we'll probably need to run this, but again, it should be okay. So running this will download the most commonly used words in this lexicon. This lexicon here called Veda is a really popular lexicon for NLTK. We can also import a sentiment analyzer, which will just give us that score from 1 to -1 on the sentiment of a sentence or a string. And then I write like a little handy function here so we can just get sentiment data very quickly. That probably will take a minute or so to run if it's the first time you're running it. And we can just use that package straight away. I love cats. We get a score of 0.6. It's just saying it's largely positive. I hate cats, -5.67. Largely negative. I am cats has no sentiment. There's no word in there that implies sentiment at all. Then we can split a word up by sentiment as well, so we can just see how that score is being made. And we get 0 for the I, 0 for the cats, 0.6369 for love. So let's take that top comment, and we can see that's quite positive. It's more positive than saying I love cats. So we have a good indication that this highly upvoted comment is very positive, and it's very likely that on the Ghana subreddit, people like to see Ghana represented in a positive light. That's not particularly surprising. We can split it up by word and just see how that's come about. So we've got success, successor, and that's it. Those are the only sentiment words. So it's just the power of the word success is overweighed there. So we can apply that to our entire data frame all at once. So we've got a bunch of really positive comments in the tips on traveling to Ghana, which makes sense. I think most people that would advise traveling somewhere are going to give positive tips on it, right? Let's print out a few of them so we can see someone did a voluntary social year. Their positivity is almost as high as it could be. It looks like, just skimming around it, I can see amazing, I can see fun. It just, it makes sense. I see a lot of like happy things in there. Again, happy, happy, happy. These are the top comments. So if you wanted to try and figure out, what people like about Ghana, these are good comments to start with. And, we're being quite lazy here. We're taking the whole comment when we could just take single sentences at a time, and we'd probably be able to extract individual sentences that had really high sentiment and were effectively good recommendations. Then we're going to look by lowest. Again, I did give a warning at the start, but this is probably where we're going to see it. There's complaints about LGBT or lack of LGBT support. A lot of mention of crime statistics, a lot of mention of crime, something about the Russia-Ukraine war, some stuff about malaria, shingles, and health. So it makes sense. So we've kind of, looking at 10 comments there, we've got all these different perspectives. We've got like the complaints about Ghana. We've got the recommendations about people going to Ghana. And again, this is from a very touristy view. So I'm not saying that this represents the people of Ghana and stuff like that. But it's just it's interesting to see what people are talking about online. And now we have those sentiment scores, so we can simply plot those as well. Oh, that doesn't look right. One sec. Yeah, okay. So we can see there we've got this like skew of, there seem to be slightly more low negativity scores than high negativity scores. Loads of neutral, but if anything, this is sort of a false flag because our neutrality score is kind of limited by our dictionary. If anything, I'd be tempted to make this graph again without those zero sentiment comments. And then again, most comments look to be positive, but they tend to be overwhelmingly positive if they are positive, which again makes sense. What did I do here? So then we've got, I just check if score correlates with sentiment real quick. That would just imply, comments that talk positively get more upvotes, or comments that talk negatively get more upvotes. But we actually see almost no correlation here. If this number was high and close to 1, that would mean that they were completely correlated, like every highly upvoted comment was positive, or if it was -1, it would be the other way around. But because it's almost 0, that doesn't seem particularly interesting to me. So another thing I suggest we do is just tidy up the text that we've got so far and see if we can make a nice word cloud. So there's just another package to download there. First thing I'm going to do is split all of the text in the entire data set by strings. So we should get individual words, individual punctuation, and that's what we see here. So our most common word is a full stop, not particularly useful. We've got the, comma, at, to, I, and, of, in, is. So pretty useless. If I made a word cloud of that, you wouldn't be very happy. It's not a great research project. But luckily, these are really easy to tidy up. I mean, removing punctuation, we can do quite trivially. And these are all what I called stop words in the presentation earlier. So first thing we'll do is take out stop words. And also this line here will remove any punctuation or numbers. Oh, not stop words. Yeah, sorry. This will remove any of those punctuation, basically. So we can do the exact same thing, get that word count. And now we're not seeing those 2 punctuation, right? We're not seeing the full stop, the comma. And I'm sure if we went a couple of rows down, we would have seen some other things like colons and stuff like that. So looking at our graph now, we're seeing our most common words to, to, the, I, and. These are basically all pronouns and stop words, which is exactly what I said would happen before. Luckily, this is such a common problem. NLTK has a stop words package, which we can import, and these are the stop words in English. So we can just remove all of these instances from our data so far. So now we've got it without stop words, and instantly the highest word is Ghana. No surprise there. We see country, Africa, food, stuff that makes sense. Then we've got some other ones like one, go, get. I mean, these are just verbs that perhaps we could remove. They're not really going to paint the best picture, but the idea is, I have a feeling now in the top 100, the words are probably a lot more interesting than they were before. Oh, not top 100. Anyway, Bathbot, we can see now we've actually got something interesting here. Everyone in these subreddits is talking about Ghana. We should hope so. About a third of the comments explicitly mention Ghana or country, and then a few of them mention Africa. And one thing to watch out for, you see we've got Africa with a capital A, we've got Ghana with a capital G. That should always be written that way, but I bet it isn't. And I bet if we do that normalization I talked about before, if we lowercase everything, some of these nouns are going to bubble up to the top. Especially some nouns aren't always used as what we call proper nouns. They're not always capitalized, but maybe they should be. And we'll have a thing where, half the sentences that mention country will be the first word in the sentence, for example. So it will be capitalized. So those should just be flattened out immediately. So if we check that again, we've now got an additional, what was that, about 30 more representations of Ghana. Now we've included the lowercase ones. Country's gone up. Africa is about the same. 4 more instances of Africa, but you would hope it's not being spelled like that. We've got other ones, Africa, African, could potentially be mixed. We've got the coast, that's probably mentions of Ivory Coast. We've got loads of mentions of food. So we're getting somewhere now. Makes a bit more sense. And then next, I just recommend we go straight into word clouds. So I've got a little snippet here that will, we can take all of the comments that contain the word food. So just replacing this little bit would change what we get. This will only give us comments with food, and hopefully people that talk about food are either giving tourist advice or they're talking about their favorite food or something like that. So what do we see in here? Any more food words that we wouldn't have seen before? We've got dishes, Ivory Coast, maybe a bit more touristy. We've got rice, cocoa, French, maybe influences on the food, I don't know, UK. We got fufu. And then we can put this in the right format for the word cloud package that I have called Pillow and word cloud. And there we go. It's a bit lazy. It doesn't look great, but at least we can see, we see Ghana represented. We see food, dishes. We've actually got something real out of that process. And you can tidy it up by you can use an image called a mask. So I can make this word cloud any shape. So I've just made it not right in the circle in the center in this case. Again, I see food, Africa, cocoa, rice, French, fufu. I'm seeing all those words again. So this looks good to me. Doesn't look particularly Ghana related. So what I've done in this one is I've given an example where I can set a color palette. So these are the colors of the flag of Ghana. And I've got a mask that makes it the shape of Ghana as well. So exactly the same. I can generate that. And now I've got this just really nice little graphic that just has all these positive and food related words in the colors of Ghana, drawn in the shape of Ghana. And, we can set this as, we can put a background in here. We can do all sorts of stuff. I think these are great for social media and just a little highlight feature on an academic poster, for example. And it's a bit fiddly. This is quite a technical way of doing it, but I'll talk in the Excel demo. But there's this website, Word Clouds UK, that I use a lot. And that's just a much easier way of playing around with those same features. You can choose your words in here. You can change your word list. You can delete certain words if you want to hide them. I think this is a really cool and nicer way to explore this kind of data as well. But I'll go through that in the Excel demo because I think this one's more for Python devs and technical people, but I'm just showing you what's possible. And again, this one's one I tried to make that uses like the colors of the Ghana flag over those words. So all you need to do that is just having an actual picture of the flag, and use this little snippet here. And you can do that with whatever you want to do. And then finally, I've got a little snippet that'll export those frequencies. So the export of this, you can paste straight into this word cloud site and make word clouds this way as well if you want to. Cool. And that's it for now. I mean, feel free to ask any questions as I wrap up. But I've linked this all in the YouTube chat. So yeah, I'll see you soon, hopefully.